Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive shift in how modern professionals work. We're going to look at exactly how we can integrate powerful AI into our daily workflows without losing our essential, undeniable human insight. To do this, we'll be exploring a really fascinating framework out of Science Tokyo's Engineering Design Advanced course that honestly redefines our entire relationship with artificial intelligence.
Here's our roadmap for today. First up, moving beyond the post-it note. Then, the new human mandate. Third, the 3R design framework. Fourth, the GeoGuessr analogy. And finally, keeping AI backstage. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Beyond the post-it note, the speed and volume of modern design.
So the traditional way we brainstorm and collaborate, throwing a million sticky notes on a whiteboard, is officially breaking down under the weight of new technology. And to understand why, we just need to look at the timeline. Everything shifted in November 2025. That was this huge inflection point where large language model capabilities just spiked dramatically. Fast forward a bit to mid-2026, and AI use has become so ordinary that it's literally a bit on mainstream TV shows. But here's the catch, and experts like Steve Blank pointed this out. This widespread use of ChatGPT actually started to decrease the quality of human insights. So we gained unprecedented speed, but we kind of started losing our depth.
The big takeaway here is that those old-school workshop styles simply can't keep up with today's blistering speed and sheer volume of information. I mean, you can't manually synthesize 1,000 data points anymore, right? The modern skill isn't just coming up with ideas, it's deciding exactly what to delegate to an AI, judging if that AI's output is actually trustworthy, and ultimately taking full responsibility for the final result.
Which brings us to Section 2, the new human mandate, drawing the boundary between human and machine.
This raises a huge question. If AI is handling the heavy lifting with speed and volume, what's actually left for us humans to do? Well, software engineering is a perfect precedent for this. AI has massively improved coding speed, volume, and even quality. But because human limits exist, setting strict boundaries became absolutely necessary. The AI writes the code way faster than anyone else can, but we are the ones who have to decide what to build in the first place. And critically, we have to be able to explain what was built to the stakeholders. And this perfectly illustrates what's happening in design and strategy right now. Humans are increasingly required to exercise decision-making and accountability. You are absolutely not banned from using AI. In fact, you should be using it to speed things up. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. You have to be ready to give a thorough human explanation of your point of view. That's where we draw the boundary. Let's move on to Section 3, the 3R design framework, guaranteeing human accountability. So how do you actually prove that your insights are yours and not just spat out by a generic prompt? You need a system. To maintain control, you want to filter your work through the POV 3R framework. That stands for resourcing, remarking, and reframing. You don't necessarily have to paste these into your final presentation, but you absolutely need them in your back pocket for when someone inevitably asks how you arrived at your conclusions. Let's break those down. The first R is resourcing. Basically, where did the data actually come from? This step demands that you step away from the keyboard, go to real sites, and talk to real users. Now, using AI to prep your questions or do some background research, totally fine. But the actual resourcing, getting raw data from a living, breathing user trying to accomplish a real task, has to come from the real world. The second R is remarking. Out of a massive sea of data, why did you focus on that one specific piece? Why does it matter? In Japanese, there's this great concept called zawa-zawa. It's like a stir or a feeling of friction that catches your attention. AI is fantastic for transcribing interviews or doing basic organization, but remarking, actually spotting that tension that makes a data point genuinely interesting, that is 100% your job. And the third R is reframing. Does this present a truly original insight? Now, reframing isn't just taking the opposite stance. If a fact says a user leads a break, you can't just be contrarian and say no break needed. And it's not just paraphrasing the word relax to rest the body. True reframing fundamentally changes the target variable. A great example is realizing a user doesn't just need to rest. They need to rest without worrying about their colleagues judging them. See the difference? That's a completely different, deeply human problem. Section 4, the GeoGuessr analogy, the danger of the artificial interview. Now, this whole framework brings up a massive question about that first R, resourcing, because gathering real-world data obviously takes a lot of time.
Since LLMs literally hold a vast chunk of human knowledge and try so incredibly hard to be helpful, why can't we just save time and interview the AI instead of real people?
To answer that, let's look at GeoGuessr. If you've seen people play this game online, it's wild. They can pinpoint their exact global location just by looking at the angle of the sun or a random utility pole on Google Street View. But there's a huge limitation here. Google Street View does not cover the entire world. And even in the places it does cover, the images are frequently terribly outdated. The map is not the territory.
If you just interview an AI, you're only looking at the map. But your actual job as a professional is to get information that is not on the map. You have to find out the current on-the-ground reality. When you talk to a real human, you capture misstatements, changing moods, the atmosphere of a room. All those messy, non-textual lived experiences are where the real insights hide. And that reality just simply isn't on the AI's map.
Section 5. Keeping AI backstage, removing the AI-ness. Okay, so we've gathered our human insights and used AI to organize them. But how should the final product actually look? Well, here is a harsh reality check. If your final deliverables look or sound AI-ish, they create a massive amount of noise. In user testing, people just won't evaluate AI-generated prototypes seriously. And in presentations, if your slides or script reek of default ChatGPT phrasing, your personal credibility completely tanks.
That means you have to develop the skill of removing AI-ness. The AI is a brilliant assistant, absolutely, but you've got to keep the machine backstage where it belongs. The final product has to feel authentic, intentional, and undeniably crafted by a human who takes full responsibility for it.
And finally, crucial ethics, protecting user data. Before we wrap up this explainer, we have to talk about one non-negotiable rule. Because you are dealing with real people and unmapped real-world data, that user data must never be fed into online AI models. You have a strict responsibility to protect these insights. So either rigorously disable training in your AI settings, or better yet, run a secure, local LLM entirely on your own machine. We're moving into a brave new world of limitless speed and massive volume. AI is an incredible tool that we should all embrace, for sure. But the mandate for human decision-making and accountability has literally never been higher. So as AI accelerates everything we do, how will you use resourcing, remarking, and reframing to ensure your next big insight remains undeniably human? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.